G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I saw this video and knew I had to react to it. This is a video about what do non-Americans think of Americans from TikTok news. So these are all TikToks about what non-Americans think of Americans, and I have a feeling if they're basing it off of stereotypes, it's not gonna look good for us Americans. So if you want to see what they reacted to, if you want to see what they said, grab a Bicky, grab a cuppa, and let's jump into this video.
What do you think of us? What is your impression of America?
Okay, so I know that you're not really talking to me because I'm from the US. I'm a US immigrant living in Costa Rica, and I've had plenty of opportunities to ask Costa Ricans, like, what do you think of people from the US? And because Ticos, the Costa Ricans, are such nice people, rarely will they say anything terrible. But those who work in customer service in call centers will tell you. It's pretty much a known fact that people from the US act like entitled brats. They do not understand our obsessions with guns. They think that we're rude and that we're loud. And while yes, some people from Costa Rica do dream about living in the US, they dream about the romanticized version of it. They don't actually know what it's like. And I will say, the longer I live outside of the United States, I see what the rest of the world sees. And it's not pretty. It's a country founded on racism and capitalism. And it's gross.
Yeah, that as an American abroad, that sums it up so well, that once you live outside of the US, you really see it for what it is. You really do see it how the rest of the world sees it. You're outside of that bubble, and so much of America's history, its economy, is based on racism and capitalism. And that's something that is so, unfortunately, distinctly American, and it's something that has been woven into the fabric of American culture, and I don't think that's ever really going to go away. It benefits way too many people to have the system that we do, even though it is predatory, even though it is a flawed system. So many people still benefit from it. I've heard a lot of those comments from Aussies too, so it's interesting to hear that a lot of Costa Ricans say the same thing, that Americans come across as rude, that we come across as loud, that we're gun loving and gun obsessed. I've seen it in my comments here. I've heard it talking to Aussies over here in Australia. There seems to be this notion that all Americans are loud, rude, obnoxious, dumb, stupid, Second Amendment loving people. Oh, and fat. I forgot to throw in, a lot of people seem to think that Americans are all like morbidly obese, which it hurts to some extent that a lot of other people see it this way, but at the same time, it's true for so many people. Is it true for every American? No, I know so many people who aren't loud, who aren't rude, who aren't obnoxious. Some people who are really, really intelligent. But you see the stereotypes through Hollywood. You see stereotypes that are circulated around in the news. Here in Australia, we see a lot of news about what's going on with the military in the US and guns and gun control in the US. So I'm not surprised that a lot of Aussies, their knee-jerk reaction when a lot of them think of Americans is what's in Hollywood, and they think about guns. Because that's really all Aussies see, and it's really frustrating. It's disappointing as somebody who's American because there's so much more to America than that, but that doesn't mean that what they see isn't true, it isn't accurate, it isn't a facet of the huge diamond that is America.
What do you think of us? What is your impression of America?
Okay, let me explain who I am first. Half Dutch, half Spanish, living in the Netherlands, 100% European. Here we go. America. As a child, it's the place you want to go, okay? It's the place you see in all the movies. It's the place you see in all the music videos. It's where all the crazy things happen. It's where everything that's ever been excited looks like it happens only there. Not true, but that's, as a kid, you get that image, right? And you kind of set your sights on it. That's the end goal. You want to go to America. That's the best place in the world. Then you grow up. You become an adult. You start looking at life more seriously and more objectively, and then you notice a lot of things going wrong there. Absolute first thing to say about America, guns, bro. Like, stop. There's a reason only 3 countries in the world have that same structure, the right to bear arms bullshit, and 2 of those 3 are not first world countries. So, food for thought.
So I didn't know that. As an American, I thought there were dozens of countries that at least had something equivalent to the right to bear arms. So hearing that it's only 2 and probably 2 third world countries that have this is shocking to me, to be honest. I kind of want to look into this a little bit more just to confirm that that's accurate, but if that's true, that is shocking. I know that the US is one of only 2 countries that taxes its American citizens abroad, the other one being Eritrea, which is a little third world African dictatorship. Anyway, getting off of the tax rant because that will be another video way further down the line, trust me. Again, I'm not surprised that guns are one of the very first things that come up in this. It seems to be a huge topic of conversation whenever anybody talks to an American. One of the things that they bring up often are guns.
Just saying, your economy is absolutely gone to shit. I mean, the amount of money you have to spend on college or any education really is beyond absurdly high. It's stupid. We got student loans, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what y'all have to pay for school, and that just goes to show how, well, absolutely fucked your economy is.
Yeah, as somebody who has had to pay $80,000 in student loan debt for a degree I didn't use, Exhibit A, you guys. I would probably have a house by now if I didn't have my student loan debt, to be honest. And it's so frustrating to think of all the things that I could have done or I would be able to do if I had lived in a country that didn't have such a predatory system against 17, 18, 19-year-olds who are going into college for the first time. Or if they at least had a system in place that was similar to HEX or HELP over here in Australia. Yeah, it's a little bit flawed, but it's so much better than paying the absolute fortune that I've had to pay for a bachelor's degree, you guys. A bachelor's degree. It's not like I have a PhD. I didn't go to law school. $80,000 for a bachelor's degree, and I only lived on campus for 2 years. I commuted for 2 years. So it's only 2 years of living expenses added into the actual tuition cost. On top of that, I had a scholarship that paid for half of my tuition every semester. It's so expensive.
The fact that, like, how many tips you gotta give in restaurants anytime you go out because the waitstaff is so criminally underpaid that they can't sustain themselves if you don't just cover the difference between what they get paid by the employer and what you gotta give them. Just saying, like, healthcare. Oh my god. Dude, seriously? The healthcare is absolutely gone to even further of a shit than your economy because the bills that come out of hospitals there, nah, man. Like, you've seen how many other countries have this perfectly under control. I'm not afraid to go to the hospital. I can go whenever the fuck I want. I'm covered by paying like $100 a month in healthcare insurance. Like, that's it. I'm covered. No fear whatsoever. And yeah, so just to name a few, because I don't want to rant for too long. I'm just saying, like, as far as the people go, the Americans themselves, there's good people and bad people, like in every other country, right? We got good and bad people. The next country got good and bad people. Y'all have good and bad people. But the general image of Americans, the stereotypical Americans, honestly, I'm sorry, but it's not a very good image. It's kind of like close-minded, prone to like anger a lot, and like a little bit too proud of a country you did absolutely nothing to build up. You know, it's like, yeah, your forefathers did, not you, so don't. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I get that there are a lot of Americans who are super patriotic, who are so proud to be Americans, and those are also the kinds of people who are typically running the country into the ground. Those are the kind of people who are the first ones to say, if you don't like it here, then leave. And sadly, I know quite a few Americans who are like this, and it's very, very frustrating because they're so narrow-minded, you can't have a conversation with them. At least not without it becoming either an argument on their end or they just don't want to listen. So unless you yes them to death or you change the subject, there's really no way to have a conversation with them. They have drunk the Kool-Aid, you guys. They are so involved in this cult of American patriotism that they can't have a reasonable conversation. You can't question anything with them. It's America's the best and there is no other option. There's no other alternative. All other countries are basically third world countries compared to America in their eyes. And even though it's frustrating to see that as the stereotype, I know so many people who are the stereotype, which is really, really frustrating because so many Americans aren't like that. I mean, not a lot of Aussies have met a lot of Americans in Australia. So I'm sure a lot of Aussies do think of us as that loud, obnoxious, angry, dumb, fat stereotype. And to be honest, I could lose a little bit of weight, but it's really not that true when it comes down to the average American. I feel like people see such the fringe extremes on both sides that a lot of average Americans just get sort of washed away when it comes to seeing these stereotypes. And it's so, so frustrating because I really am just the average American girl next door, and to be compared to these stereotypes, it's really, really aggravating because that's not me. That's not the America I know, the America I love. That's not my friends and family back home for the most part.
And if you know anybody outside of America, please tag them. What do you think of us?
Your seemingly contradictory ability to be completely obsessed with yourself and totally oblivious of yourself at the same time is somewhat impressive.
That sums it up so well. Yeah, I mean, it hurts a little bit, but yeah, he did a really good job of summing that up. There are a lot of Americans who are like that. And for the longest time, I was like that too growing up. If you're raised in the cult of America, you do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag every single morning, grade school and high school. It's not something that people really question. It's something that you're sort of indoctrinated to as a kid. So you don't question it when you're younger. And when you're older and you start to question things a little, you either tend to go to one extreme or the other.
And the amount of pro-nationalist American propaganda that the average American seems to regard as totally normal is frankly worrying. I mean, the fact that you have the need to put the flag on almost every street corner, and you have a picture of the president in almost every classroom. Every time someone kicks or throws a ball, you have to stop and sing the national anthem first. And you seem to regard questioning or criticizing your military as a cardinal sin, which is terrifying. I think if more of you traveled the world more, you would find that you have a lot more in common with backwards dictatorships than hopefully you'd be comfortable with.
Oh, that is so true. And if you said that to a lot of the patriotic Americans, they would be fuming. I'd actually kind of love to see their reaction to some of that. But it really, really is true. What were some of the things that he had said? Let me go back and just break down some of it because a lot of it is spot on.
The need to put the flag on almost every street corner, and you have a...
So putting the flag on every street corner. I know a lot of American homes who around the summertime in particular, around Memorial Day and then the 4th of July, will put flags outside. Some people have flagpoles out the front of their house. Some people have like American flag bunting. Sorry guys, somebody wanted to come and say hello while I'm filming. So yeah, there are a lot of Americans who do have the flag and whatnot outside of their house. I didn't think anything of it. When I had a house back in the States, I did actually own a home back in the States, long story. But I had a little thing in front of the house that actually had a spot for 3 small American flags. I had 3 small American flags outside of my house. I didn't think anything of it at the time, and I wasn't some die-hard American patriot. I was, like I said, your average everyday American, so a lot of Americans do that. And I can count on one hand the number of homes here that I've seen have an Australian flag or flagpole in front of their home or even in their backyard. It's not something that's common over here at all.
A picture of the president in almost every classroom,
Is that not a thing? Okay, I'm gonna sound like the dumb American, now I know it. But is it not a thing to have like posters of past prime ministers or past monarchs or anything like that in classrooms over here, even history classrooms? Because I remember every single history class I had in high school, we had posters of the presidents, all the way from George Washington all the way up until, I guess it would depend on when they actually bought the poster. Some had George Bush, some had Obama, so it was sort of anywhere between there when I was in school. But is prime minister posters, monarch posters not a thing? It's not common. I'm gonna get flagged for this in the comments, I'm sure. But to me, that was normal, and that's honestly not something I even thought about until this video, that that's not something other countries do.
Anytime someone kicks or throws a ball, you have to stop and sing the national anthem first.
Okay, I feel like this is really, really common in a lot of sports. I mean, Mark and I were just watching the MotoGP race at Phillip Island the other day, and they played the Australian national anthem, Advance Australia Fair, before the actual race started. So I don't know if that's really that uncommon. And then, like in the Olympics, it's also really common to play the national anthem of the first place winner's country. So in this case, you know, it won't give any spoilers in case anybody hasn't seen it, but they played the national anthem of the first place winner for the MotoGP winner at Phillip Island, just like they do it in the Olympics too. Whoever wins that particular race, whoever wins that medal, whoever gets the gold medal gets the national anthem played. So I don't know if that's really that much of an American thing or if it started becoming a thing globally because of America. I'm not sure, but I don't think that's really just an American thing.
And you seem to regard questioning or criticizing your military as a cardinal sin, which is terrifying.
Yeah, there's so much money that goes into the American military, and there are so many Americans who are proud of having the biggest and toughest military out there. I mean, I don't know if ours is bigger than China. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. But I know it's definitely at least in the top 3. But along with that, something you didn't mention is there's this almost hero worship for a lot of people who have served in the military. Like, there are people who will go up to a homeless vet who has a vet hat on and like a little cup for change, and they'll drop $1 in there and go, "Thank you for your service." Do you not see the irony in that? Do you not see how messed up that situation is? I know Australia's military has been sort of highlighted in the last couple of years, particularly with some reports that have come out regarding, I can't say this word because, again, YouTube demonetization, but unfortunately that's becoming a more common thing amongst veterans over here in Australia. It's very common for vets over in America as well, along with homelessness. Homelessness for American vets is astounding what the numbers are, you guys. It's shocking, it's disgusting, it's embarrassing. But there's this idea of almost hero worship over in the States for people who are currently serving, and then once they've served, yeah, sure, you thank them for their service, but what are you really doing to help them out as a government, as a country? Because there are so many homeless vets over in the States. It's disgusting and it's embarrassing that we treat them this way.
I've been waiting for this one. If you don't know me, my name is Ashley, and here are my qualifications. 1, I'm American. 2, no longer lives in America. And let me tell you something, I never pretended like I thought like everyone in the world loved Americans, right? We all know that's not true.
You learn that when you're older. When you're a kid, you think everybody in the world loves America. You think that the only enemies to America are evil Russians and Nazis, and those are the only people that hate America up until you're like maybe in like your preteen years, and then you realize, hey, we're not really what we're cracked up to be. There's a lot more to the outside world than just what we see here in America. So honestly, as a kid, that's not something you think at all. You think everybody loves America when you're growing up as a kid in the States.
Right? You do know that, right? But it's brutal. I'm not gonna lie, it's brutal. Firstly, they think you're stupid. And to be honest, the longer I live outside of America, the more I agree with them. But before you come at me, let me explain why. For background, I now live in the UK. But yeah, stupid's number 1. 2, we're noisy and we lack complete etiquette, especially at the dinner table.
Okay, so I think that is going to definitely depend on the culture you're going to, because Aussies are way more casual about dining etiquette. It's basically use your manners, use a knife and fork. Unless you're eating something like pizza or chicken wings or something, don't use your hands. Like very, very common, very, very American etiquette.
3, we're over patriotic. Did you know it's against the flag's code to like make bedding and clothing out of the American flag? And yet it's everywhere. But also, it wasn't until like last year that I realized that no one else pledged allegiance to the flag.
Yeah, I didn't know that up until very, very recently. I'm 31. I didn't realize until I was about in my mid-20s that other countries don't have things like the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And that they don't make kids recite this as early as kindergarten, so that way you are basically indoctrinated into the cult of America at a very, very young age. Which, if you think about what the Pledge of Allegiance says, it's so weird. You are pledging your allegiance. Now, I know there's obviously meaning and symbolism behind it. You're pledging allegiance to a piece of fabric at like 7:30 in the morning when you're too young to have coffee. You're about to go on a sugar crash from the super sugary American cereal that you just had, and you're really looking forward to recess, but you have another 2 hours to go before that, so you're not paying attention, and you are just repeating what it is that you've been trained to say for years. That is what it is like as an American kid going to school for 9 months before you take that random 3-month gap during the summertime, which is a terrible, terrible system.
And when you really think about it, how culty and like is that? 4, we're self-centered. Like God chose the president, or we were the key factor in winning World War II.
I didn't know up until I was in my 20s that we weren't the key factor in winning World War II. Honest to God, I thought that for the longest time we were the reason that the rest of the world, or at least most of the rest of the world, won World War II. So, not something you're taught in American history classes at all. You're taught that America's the reason we won World War II. Like, we're literally taught that we don't want to get involved, and then the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, so now we have to get involved. So we send some troops over to Europe to control that, and in the meantime we're coming up with this nuclear bomb, and then we go and fly over Japan, drop 2 bombs, and once we do that, the rest of the war is over because we dropped 2 nuclear bombs onto innocent Japanese citizens. That's the reason that America won World War II.
5, we are far too attached to heritage. Why is everyone like 12% Italian?
Yeah, and there are people who, even if they are that 12% Italian, will still claim that they're Italian. That's what is so frustrating. You're not Italian, you're American. Go up to Italian and say you're 12% Italian, and then tell them that you're Italian and see what they say to your face.
Number 6, why? Will you hold up, Kat? Why does the government make decisions for abortions? That's not even like a topic of discussion here. Everyone I talk to about Roe v. Wade over here is so confused why it's even a case, why it's even in the government's hands at all. 7, why guns? Especially why guns after so many mass shootings, and especially school shootings. 8, why so much rape culture? 9, why so much serial killer culture?
One of the weirdest questions I got moving over here was actually from a 13-year-old Aussie. She's my friend's daughter's friend. And I was talking to her and her daughter one day. They're asking me all these questions about America because they never met an American and they were curious. And she looks at me and goes, "Why are all serial killers American? Why do you watch so many serial killer documentaries?" Now, I'm not somebody who's into the whole true crime thing. I'm not somebody who's into the whole serial killer thing. But it is so common over in the States to be obsessed with this serial killer stuff, the documentaries, these docu-series. They're so popular over in the States. It's mind-boggling to the rest of the world how we're so obsessed with this serial killer culture. No wonder you have gunmen who go into schools and movie theaters and concerts and shoot things up, because their name ends up in the media everywhere afterwards. They become sort of like one of these killers, and to them, they get their little moment in the spotlight. It's disgusting.
And 10, most importantly to the Brits, why do Americans think that they can outdrink anyone else, especially the Brits? Because let me tell you, you can't and you won't. In all honesty, I totally forgot to even mention healthcare, which is a whole nother video on its own. Actually, each one of these points could be a video on its own. Actually, I could make entire videos of each and every one of these points. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but these are just the facts. The facts being what other countries, specifically Brits, think of us Americans.
So there are a lot of Americans who think that they're big drinkers and they were really big college drinkers and they could drink anybody under the table. No. I thought that there were a lot of Americans who were pretty big drinkers before I came over here, and I've been to Aussie pubs. People over here in Australia can put away their beer like it is nothing.
So let me know if you want more parts.
And if you know anybody outside of America, please tag them. What do you think of us?
So here's the humble opinion of a Canadian citizen. I may not represent all Canadians, but I do hate the United States of America. It's not their domestic problems like their fascist police state, their racism, their sexism, their homophobia, their transphobia. It's not their non-existent healthcare or their inaccessible education, or the fact that their country is built on the foundation of millions of corpses of black and brown and indigenous people. It's not their imperialism, dictatorships they've sponsored, the millions they've killed and crippled, the governments they've overthrown and forced to bend to their will. It's not the fact that they've created a military empire that spans the entire globe and keeps us all in line. No, what does it for me is that the American people can live in a country that is so broken and far beyond repair and still somehow think that they are free and protect the so-called freedom of everyone under their boot. So yeah, you guys suck.
Yeah, there's a lot of irony in how little freedom Americans actually do have compared to a lot of other first world countries, and yet there's still always going to be people that say we're the freest country out there, even though there's an index that said we were in, I think we're like number 10 or number 18, something like that on that list from what I remember. So America isn't even the freest country out there, but of course they're going to say that's biased and they're not actually taking things into consideration, X, Y, and Z. So you know what? At the end of the day, we all know America isn't the freest country. We all know America has a lot of flaws to it, and I'll be honest, I'm so glad I'm not living in America right now. I didn't move here to get away from America. I moved here because my husband's Australian, and it was either I move here or he moved there, and we both decided that I would move over here to Australia. And to be honest, there isn't a day that goes by where I have regretted it. It's been such a good decision. I'm so glad to not be in that country anymore. Even though Australia does have its flaws, America is such a flawed country, and so many people in America don't see it. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. It really, really does help support me and this channel, and I will see you guys in my next video.